Everything is working. My guest is Steve Hempling. It's the Free Enterprise Society. Now, let's go back to the Free Enterprise Society. How do you help people? What can you do for them? If they, I mean, first of all, we got a little bit of another problem. We got 1 million Americans that lost their homes. We got millions out of work. People are unemployment. You know, they're probably not too worried about paying taxes. But how can you help them? I'm a little unclear on the subject because I don't deal with the IRS.
Okay. Well, for people that have had IRS problems, I mean, obviously if you're not working, at least during that time, you're not going to have tax issues, although you may have something from the past. But you think about just on the face of it, if we stopped income tax for 1 year, what would that do for our economy? Would that be better stimulus than what they're doing, giving them all this money to European bankers?
I would say so.
Basically, would be able to buy a new car in the first year, cash. What would that do for us? That would be fantastic. But let's talk about, if you don't file returns, the IRS does not agree with Steve Hempling. It does not agree with Free Enterprise Society. In fact, they don't agree that you have any constitutional rights left. But that doesn't change the fact that you do. So what happens if you don't file returns is the IRS might write you a letter. If they do, we want to respond to it. We can help respond to the letters that they get. We have a legal defense fund that hires attorneys and everything if necessary, if they try to take someone to court, because we don't feel doing nothing on April 15th is a crime. It's ridiculous. And like I say, we've won a lot of cases on that. And there is constitutional issues we can bring forward. There are administrative procedure issues. I mean, even the tax has some validity. I'm not going to say the income tax is totally wrong, because there are some valid taxes. I mean, if you manufacture alcohol, tobacco, or firearms, there are clear guidelines on that you're liable for the taxes. But as an individual working here in this country, we can't find any place where you're made liable. And even if you were, that would violate constitutional principles, such as the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, because basically you have to testify against yourself on a tax return in order to pay the tax. You have to waive constitutional rights in order to pay the tax, which I can demonstrate here a little more as we go. But basically, we have a service. Anytime they're contacted by the IRS with a letter, we want them to send a copy to us, and we can help prepare the response to that. And that works pretty well. We've been here, like I say, since 1985, so we're going on 26 years. So we haven't had too much of a problem. The IRS is, calls me now and again. I mean, they know who we are. There's not a whole lot they can do about it. I mean, even the Ninth Circuit, even the case, they had a civil case against me, not a criminal case, trying to get me to stop selling some of my books. You've probably seen those actions while on injunctions.
Yes.
The government did not fare real well in my case. There's a few books I can't sell, which is, it's pathetic to me, because of those books and what so-called books that I can't sell are all they are is court cases, government documents, congressional records. They're nothing I wrote.
How can they do that? I mean, that's always been that's just really blown me away. Suddenly, we can't sell Lynn Meredith's book or Irwin Schiff's book, and we can't buy or sell your books. How can that happen?
Well, because we have a corrupt judiciary. The judges should stop this thing cold. I think the U.S. attorneys in Washington, D.C. are laughing at the judges, myself, in the federal court, because they're stupid enough or corrupt enough to give them injunctions against people that aren't doing anything except free speech. I mean, if I want to talk about a court case that some court did, it's ridiculous that they say, well, you can't talk about that. They don't like the fact that I talked about income tax. Well, that's too bad. And the Ninth Circuit ruled basically, not totally in my favor, but one of the things they said is that I have a right to my opinion and I can express it.
Well,
because they're trying to say they try to say what I say is fraudulent. Well, that's my opinion, is what I talked about on this. For your listeners, they need to understand these are my opinions, but my opinion may be wrong, but I don't want everybody to make that judgment. I don't want people to take my word for things. They should try to check it out and try to prove me wrong. But my opinion cannot be fraudulent. It's idiotic, the allegations from the U.S. attorneys. And the government does not grant that. They never said that I said anything fraudulent. But anyway, beyond that, we still have services that are there. The legal defense fund is there and pays for the attorneys, and we've had pretty good success with that. And the IRS has real trouble with that because if you kind of know what you're doing, there's easier pickets out there. There's a lot of people who don't file now. I think it's in the tens of millions, but most of them are not members of an organization. Most of them don't have any backup. Some of them got into that position maybe by listening to a radio program but didn't have any support. Some of them are doing it because they got sick or got behind for one reason or another and hope they don't catch up with it. Some people are unemployed now and can't keep up with it, whatever. But the IRS is not going to try, forget about it. But still, the thing is, to us, it's not even a tax issue. It is a constitutional problem. Because if they were to try to apply this, is this a 2-hour program today?
Yes, yes.
Okay, well, be good, because we're going to have time to get into the constitutional, why there's a constitutional problem there.
You have 1 hour and 8 minutes remaining, so.
Okay. But here's an important case because I want to keep coming back to the Constitution.
Okay, hold on just a minute. Let me. If you got a question, you want to call in, you can do that at 646-915-8774. And I think in a couple of days we'll have the 800 numbers up and working again. But 646-915-8774, and I'm talking with Steve Hempling. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, well, here's a case, Norton versus Shelby County. Talking about the Constitution. An unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no rights. It imposes no duties. Affords no protection. It creates no office. It is in legal contemplation. It's inoperative as though it has never been passed. Now, let's take, income taxes in this category as far as I'm concerned on the average individual. But the healthcare was just recently declared to be unconstitutional. So what does it say? It imposes no duties on any Americans. Because the whole act is unconstitutional. There's no authority for the federal government to do health care. That is a state issue. Now, the states have limits too. But it would be something for the states because it's not listed in 17 powers.
Now, I wanted to bring that up. The 10th Amendment movement, the states, Arizona, in particular, Oklahoma, and North Dakota. North Dakota is pretty interesting. It's the one state that's not in the hole, and it's the one state that's got a state-owned bank.
Well, they're faring better than many states right now. California has really got problems, and where I'm at, unfortunately, I may have to go over there to Arizona one of these days, but what I'm hoping for is, I know a lot of these states are suing the federal government, and I'm glad to see that. But what I find interesting in Washington State is where the Attorney General basically declared the health care to be unconstitutional, and the state basically then the legislature said we're not going to follow it. If you harass our citizens, we're going to, protect them somehow. I don't know how they're going to do that. And the other problem is with that, I don't know how they're going to stop the funding because that comes out of people's paychecks already. That's starting. People already have the deductions for healthcare systems that will probably never get put into place. But there's 30-some states suing the federal government saying that it's unconstitutional. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. And in some respects, I'm a little concerned about it because you're basically going to their court asking their permission to have the Constitution. Now, I don't know that that would be a federal court that should be making a rule. That should be the state court, maybe the state Supreme Court saying and claiming it's unconstitutional, more like Washington State did, and just ignoring it. This kind of thing has never really happened before. The states kind of standing up like this. So I'm pretty encouraged by that. I think because the states can. I know you see this, Clay. The states can really wipe the power of the federal government away very quickly. Because the states have the power, and the people listening to the program have more power than really the federal Congress does. In many ways under law and under the Constitution.
If they'll stand up and use it, Yeah. In California.
Well, read it out and read it. One of the problems is the Constitution isn't taught anymore. That's something that is available through our catalog on the website, and you can. People are listening, they can go to www.freeenterprisesociety.com, and there's a free speech there given by me that they can go to, and I can go into a lot more detail on the income tax and some of the cases that we won and how we did that. And there's a free catalog there. They can get information on it. They can get membership information and everything there. There's quite a bit of information there. And
what does it cost approximately, if you can tell me, to become a member of the Free Enterprise Society, and what are the benefits?
Well, the basic membership is only $55 a year, and that comes with a newsletter and discounts on some of the books and publications. You know, if you need letters and things, it costs a little more, but we're not attorneys. We use paralegals and researchers, so we're far less. You know, to answer a letter and stuff is very reasonable, generally between $75 and $125, something like that. Sometimes attorneys are needed if it's something that we handle through the legal defense fund. We hire the attorneys. If it's not, then you may have to either handle it yourself or get an attorney. Now, generally speaking, we just stay out of court. A lot of this is administrative and just constitutional procedure that we have to deal with. Because most of the time, what the IRS says is that maybe the IRS says it's a self-assessment system and voluntary compliance.
Well, they tell we've got the most successful voluntary tax system. Well, okay, I'm really glad to hear that, because I don't want to volunteer. Thank you.
Well, that's what happened to me. I mean, let's go to the Fifth Amendment. Is very important when it comes to the income tax. And the Fifth Amendment says no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. And that is involved with income tax. We have a Supreme Court case here, Sullivan versus United States, 1926, talking about the Fifth Amendment and the filing of income tax returns. And here's what the court had to say. The judge said, there can be no question that one who files a return under oath is a witness within the meaning of the amendment, and talking about the Fifth Amendment. So you waive the Fifth Amendment when you file an income tax return. That's not SteveHempling saying it. That's Sullivan versus United States. Now, the Fourth Amendment also in the Constitution is being waived by anyone who files a return. And the Fourth Amendment says this: the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure shall not be violated. Do you waive your Fourth Amendment right? The answer is absolutely. At least to the extent that you make reference to a bank document or a statement of some sort, those documents, now you waive your Fourth Amendment right to privacy on them. So the question now becomes, can you be required to waive a right in order to pay tax? So let's find out what the definition is from a law dictionary. What does waive mean? In order for one to waive a right, he must do it knowingly and be possessed of the facts. Now, does the IRS tell people exactly what's happening when they're waiving these rights?
All right.
No, they don't.
Hang on a minute. We got to take a break here, and we'll be right back with Steve Hempling. If you want to call in, do that. Phone number's on my site.
It's coming down. New world orders, training armies on our ground. With soldiers dressed in black and blue to aim the crosshairs of their guns at the I know a man who lives way up in Idaho.
You are listening to Liberty Broadcasting Network.
This is an emergency alert. People don't die of H1N1 infection. They die from system-wide intoxication and toxic shock. Doctors call it the cytokine storm following infection and immune hyperstimulation. Vaccines with immune stimulants or toxic drugs chemicalize your body, adding to your death risk. Prevent death and reverse diseases from infections, vaccinations, and drug toxicity. Call this number to get my free special report about the flu and what to do to save lives, maybe even your own. I'm Dr. Leonard Horowitz. Order Zeolife, the world's most powerful broad-spectrum detoxifier, immune system guard, and vaccine cleanse. Avoid vaccinations and drugs. Use Zeolife and oxysilver hydrosol instead to detox and degerm your body. Stop the shock of toxicity and preventable deaths. Call 1-888-KO-GERMS. That's 1-888-KO-GERMS. Or visit zeolife.net and oxysilver.net and order your free report and package special.
Can you handle the truth?
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you, and your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
Find us at www.libertybroadcastingnetwork.com.
The U.S. dollar is in so much trouble. According to the international forecaster Bob Chapman, he says the dollar in 2010 lost 23% of its value. Silver is one of the smartest things you can get to make sure that you are ready for whatever the economy may do in 2011 or 2012. Call Paul Drockton. His phone number 330-636-6292. Tell Paul that CJ sent you. Getting a hold of this is your way of getting prepared for whatever the economy may do, whatever the dollar will do as the financial collapse continues to happen here in America. Ben Bernanke says a slow collapse is what they want. Tim Geithner says that America is insolvent. Getting silver is one of the best things you can do to get ready for whatever the dollar will do, whatever happens with the economy in America. Call Paul at 330-636-6292 and tell Paul you want some silver. Tell him that CJ sent you. Again, 330-636-6292.
You're listening to the Liberty Broadcasting Network.
Being a part of Life Change Tea has been an exhilarating experience. I love the testimonies. Julie in New York writes, I love this product. I feel great. It worked immediately. You can feel the cleansing right away. Other products don't work right away like this one does. Mrs. Luella from Missouri writes, my daughter has lost 27 pounds. She loves the tea. And David from Tennessee writes, my wife has a lot of digestive problems and the tea really helps her a lot. I like it too. And here's my favorite from CJ in Minnesota. He writes, this stuff really works. No, I mean it really works. No, I mean it really works. Be one of the many testimonies that we receive every month. Order today online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Or you can call us at 928-308-0408. You know the number, 928-308-0408. Be our next testimony. You love us, and we love you.
Can you handle the truth?
Jim Phillips, he's a talk show host that joins RJ every Monday. He swears by Jim's Jungle Juice as his way of going camping and taking food with him so he doesn't have to start a fire. This wheatgrass juice with barley and spearmint is an awesome way to take a spoonful or two, mix it with a glass of water, and it's a meal. Wheatgrass and barley and mint, an all-natural process where it's grown on 8,000 acres of land without any chemicals, without any pesticides. This is on the shelves in California. This live wheatgrass instant juice, you can get it for just $20 a jar. In California, it's on the fancy shelves for $30 a jar. It's 90 days worth of meals available to you for $20 a jar, plus $6 a jar for shipping. Call 435-283-3733. That's Jim's Jungle Juice or the Real Live Instant Juice. It's food storage. It's a meal in a jar available to you for just $20 plus $6 for shipping. Call 435-283-3733.
The views and opinions expressed on this network by the host and their guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Liberty Broadcasting Network, its sponsors, affiliates, or hosts.
So proud, so great, so free. Your feathers of fire light the skies, and your spirit is one with me. Your wings span the mighty ocean, and I see everything. The slightest of your motions can make the continents ring. Yet in all your mighty glory vanished from the skies, leaving just another story. It's millions of man-made lies. They tell of how it fell from the sky.
All right, on the my guest is Steve Hempling of the Free Enterprise Society. You can get to it linked on my on the website under Steve's name. And Steve, in the chat room, they're talking. Max is asking, isn't the Federal Reserve unconstitutional?
Well, Congress, the Constitution, one of the 17 powers listed in the Constitution under Article 1, Section 10 is the Congress shall have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof. And I think Congress abrogated their authority when they transferred and allowed the Federal Reserve to print our money. They don't coin the money; they print notes, as you know.
Yes.
A note is redeemable in something of value. For example, a note on a house. That's not the house. You can't move into the note and go to the kitchen and cook something. It has no value. It just represents something of value. And the old notes, of course, used to say that they were redeemable in lawful money, which means the notes that the Federal Reserve prints are not lawful money. They stopped saying that, but that doesn't mean they're lawful money. That just means the government's become more corrupt as time went on, to me, because the Constitution hasn't changed. Now, the federal government can print paper money under, the way I look at the Constitution, because under Article 1, it says, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin and tender in payment of debts. So the states have an absolute limitation on them. The federal government doesn't necessarily have that limitation. That's what the courts have decided too. But there's been some examples of Lincoln used to, instead of borrow from the international bankers, he printed the United States notes and used that for the Civil War. And once the war was over, he reinstituted the gold and silver standard for the feds as well. But we don't have that kind of integrity in government anymore.
Well, Kennedy,
yes, I agree. I think the feds have no authority to be operating. That should be completely repudiated, and the debt would be invalid. I mean, everything surrounding these things, when it's an unconstitutional act, is void.
Even criminals like Bernie Madoff has referred to the government as a Ponzi scheme.
Right. Well, that's where he learned how to do his thing, maybe. I don't know. There's an example
why
today.
Can't
people
we?
Use
If everything that you say is accurate, and I believe that it is, why can't we get the FBI, the Justice Department, the Congress to act on this? It's like they're not working for the people anymore. They're working for the banks. And the whole plan behind the banks is spelled out in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion and the New American Century and other documents like that, that they want a one world government here, one one bank, one religion, one nice happy group of peons.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. The Justice Department should not be fighting me. They shouldn't be filing a case against me or Erwin Schiff or these other people trying to expose this. The Justice Department should be, hey, they should call Steve Hempling up and say, Steve, we want to help you expose this income tax fraud. But, they're part of the problem. I mean, that's if the government were honest anywhere along the line, we wouldn't have this problem today. And they're just not. The U.S. attorneys, now even under Bush, several U.S. attorneys walked out. I mean, they're basically, the Justice Department has little to do with justice. It's just a whipping stone for the president to use to go after people. Clinton sent the IRS after people. Bush did the same thing. Obama's even worse. I mean, the way he attacks anybody who supports Republicans, for example.
I think Obama is is absolutely perfect. He's the perfect New World Order leader. He's half black, he's half white, he's a third Jewish, he's a third Christian, he's a third Muslim. You know, he's the perfect New World Order leader. Isn't that why they put him in the UN?
Yeah, he's half honest too now.
Yeah, my Canadian fan here says Obama the sock puppet. But
yeah, well, I can't argue with any of that. But it's going to be interesting to see if the Supreme Court ever takes this case on his birth, because everything he signed would be void too. Every expenditure, every dollar spent, every dime would be void and unlawful.
Why aren't they doing that? I mean,
not my problem.
Let's see. It's oh yeah, Obama appointed the last justice, wasn't it? Wasn't she the one that was helping him hide his birth certificate?
Yes, and well, you probably. I mean, the Supreme Court's looking at it. There's two justices he appointed, and one of the attorneys pointed out to the Supreme Court and said, "Hey, you can't. These two justices he appointed should not be involved in this case, because if he's not eligible to be president, then those appointments are improper, and they should not be involved in not letting the case come forward." Anyway, kind of an interesting take. I think it's accurate.
Yeah.
But anyway, we like to go. We deal with constitutional rights, and they take them away all the time, and we have to stop compromise. But the definition of a constitutional right from Black's Law Dictionary is a right guaranteed to the citizens by the Constitution, and so guaranteed as to prevent legislative interference therewith. I mean, Congress cannot do anything to take our rights away. I mean, that's basically what it says. But of course, they do it all the time. And we talked about voluntary before. I went to a meeting, and it was with Irwin Schiff, actually, at one point, and he talked about voluntary. And I thought he was a little off at the time, probably around 1979. He said, "Steve, you should call the IRS up." And I don't recommend this to your listeners necessarily, but it's just something I did, or this is what happened to me. But I did. The next morning, I called the IRS up, and I talked to an agent there, and I said, "Is the income tax voluntary?" And the agent said, "Yes, sir, it is." Well, this surprised me right there, Clay, because I expected that agent to set me straight and laugh and say how stupid I was. And, well, then I thought for a moment. I said, "Well, good. I don't want to volunteer anymore." And then the agent said something very interesting to me. The agent said, "But, sir, you have to volunteer." Pretty good deal, huh?
Oh yeah, that's.
Well, I hung up at that point because I was a little confused.
You have to volunteer.
But if you
no, it's not mandatory, but you have to do it anyway. You know.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I found this on the IRS's website. Here's voluntary compliance, their definition: a system of compliance that relies on individual citizens to report their income freely and voluntarily. I have a hard time reading this. Calculate your tax liability correctly and file on time. Well, freely and voluntarily. I mean, come on. 90 million Americans on April 15th freely and voluntarily go down to the post office and go through all this stuff. That's ridiculous. Why do people file returns today? Because they're terrorized.
It's
no question about it. I mean, when you talk about these things, what's the first thing you talk about? Even you talked about it. The first thing you think of, well, yeah, so-and-so went to jail, or I'll go to jail, or whatever. That's what they want you to think. But the law doesn't support that. I mean, it's just, they're using the jury's ignorance of the law. We're going to talk about that a little bit, too.
Let's see, tyranny, terror would be the chief tool of tyranny and tyrants. Hang on a minute.
That's